You think you know this story. Working class girl, Victorian London, falls into prostitution. Josephine Butler saves her. Per Antoinette Burton, UNC Press. 1994. Wrong question. Try this one. Who did the law touch first? Not her. The Indian woman in Lucknow, 1864. 4 years before Parliament dared write the same law for Portsmouth, Butler never wrote her name. We will. This is the Victorian sex trade history Anglo textbooks refuse to print. Stay, you are 5 years old. You are still alive, which already makes you the lucky one. In 1840s London, 1 in 4 children dies before their 5th birthday. That is not a metaphor. That is Anne Hardy's count. The Epidemic Streets, Oxford, 1993 cross-checked against Williams and Galley in Population Studies, 1995, 1 in 4. The street you live on is St. Giles, or Whitechapel, or the Rookery off Drury Lane. After 1845, after the famine ship dropped your mother on the docks, Irish families make up roughly 1 in 5 of these parishes. That is Lynn Holland Lees, Exiles of Erin, Manchester, 1979. She did not say, the Irish poured in. She counted them. You share a single room with 7 people. The Lascars who unloaded the East India ships sleep 3 doors down. The Ayahs who raised English children on the Bombay to London passage live 2 streets over, half of them abandoned at the docks once the family arrived home. 30 years from now, a Jewish girl your age will step off in 1881 pogrom boat into the same rookery, and the room will already be waiting. The empire moves people. London catches what falls out. Edwin Chadwick's 1842 sanitary report names your street by name. He does not say exploitation. He says, miasma. That is a choice. This is not the chapter where someone saves you. This is the chapter where the city decides what you are worth, and the answer is less than a row of bricks. You are 12. You have a placement. Maid-of-all-work, modest household somewhere in Pimlico or Camberwell, or, if your luck has truly run out, a clergyman's house in the suburbs. £6 to £10 a year. That is Pamela Horn, The Rise and Fall of the Victorian Domestic Servant. Gill and Macmillan, 1975. Or, if your mistress decides not to feed you, 9 to 14, that is Mrs. Beeton's own Book of Household Management, 1861. The table on page 8. You can read it yourself. 16 hours a day, up at 5. Asleep at 11, if the family does not entertain. You sleep under the stairs. You sleep on a flock mattress in the scullery. You sleep on the kitchen floor if the cook is in a mood. You do not have a key. The lock on your bedroom door if you have a door locks from the outside. The master class, and let us name it. This is not the household. This is a class system encoded into a payroll, has total power over your time, your sleep, your meals, your accent, your mail. Hedge the wage however you like. Per Horn, 1975, or Beeton's own table, 1861. The number is the same. The hours are the locked door is the same. No one in this house calls you by your given name. Mary is what the family calls every maid. It saves them the trouble of learning. What happens in this house next is not something that happens. It has a name. It was written into a statute in 1823. We will use both. Stay with us. Let us name the thing. What the polite Victorian novel calls her ruin, what the parish register calls misfortune, what the textbook calls fell into prostitution. That language is a choice. It is the choice the masterclass wrote for itself. We will use a different one. This is rape, with a payroll attached. The Master and Servant Act of 1823 does not say the word rape. It does not have to. It says, a servant who breaks contract can be sentenced to 3 months hard labor. It says, a master who breaks contract is liable at most for civil damages. Read those 2 sentences together. That is the legal architecture. You cannot quit. He cannot be prosecuted by you. The arithmetic does the rest. This is Hay and Craven. UNC Press. 2004. Not a hot take. A 400-page archive. So when the master's son visits the scullery at 14, when the master himself visits at 16, when the visiting clergyman is given a key, this is not a moral failing on your part. This is not something that happens to girls like you. This is the statute working exactly as designed. Let us also be careful here. Tolerated is not accepted. The fact that the law made it impossible to prosecute does not mean the women who survived it consented, blessed it, or stopped fighting it. Working-class women petitioned against this architecture for the entire 19th century. Their names did not make the headline. The statute did. This is not seduction. This is law. This is not a fall. This is a statute. We will keep saying it until the language changes. You leave the house at 17. Or the house leaves you pregnant, or sick, or fired, for catching the eye of the wrong wife. You do not have a reference. Without a reference, you do not have another placement. Without a placement, you have the street, the brothel, or the river. Most choose the street. Many choose the brothel. The river is what the papers print. In 1862, in a back room in Whitechapel, a woman who survived a beating writes down the name of the man who did it. Then his street. Then the carriage he drove. She passes the page to two friends. They add their own. By the end of the year, the notebook is shared between brothels from Spitalfields to Southwark. They call it, in private, the bad date list. We know this because, 40 years later, a journalist named Mary Higgs goes undercover into the same neighborhoods and writes about the practice in Glimpses into the Abyss project. Gutenberg has the 1906 edition, free, ebook number 40122. The list was already old when she found it. This is the part the Anglo textbook will not print. Working women have always ordered. The bad date list of 1862 is the same instinct as the English collective of prostitutes founded in 1975. Same paper, different year. We will close on the ECP later. Hold the thread. At the docks, the Lascars from Bombay and the I is abandoned after the Bombay to London passage have their own networks. They pass safety information in Bengali, in Tamil, in a London Hindi nobody on the parish register can read. Per Judith Walkowitz, Prostitution and Victorian Society, Cambridge, 1980. These networks are documented. They were not heard. And now plant this. Hold it. In the port towns, the British Army cares about Bombay, Lucknow, Karachi, Hong Kong. The same law that has not yet been written for you in Portsmouth has already been written there. The pen is in India. Parliament is just waiting for permission to bring it home. We will return to that pen. You think the names of your clients never appear in newspapers. You are wrong. Here is the part the parish register did not record. Here is the part the textbook deletes in one sentence and calls it discretion. Your clients are not all men. They are not all women. They are not all what the census form said they were on the day the census taker knocked. In July 1889, the Metropolitan Police raid a house at 19 Cleveland Street, off Fitzroy Square. Inside, telegraph boys, 14 to 19 years old, paid 4 shillings a visit. Their clients include a member of Parliament, a Lord of the Treasury, and the press will spend 3 months not naming him a member of the royal household. Per Matt Cook, London and the Culture of Homosexuality, 1885-1914 Cambridge. 2003. The scandal does not survive on the boys' bodies. It survives on the names the papers refused to print. The boys had names too. The papers did not print those either. And then let us name a second thing the textbook will not. Female husbands were not an anomaly. They were a category. Per Jen Mannion, Female Husbands, A Trans History, Cambridge University Press, 2020. More than 80 cases documented in the British press alone, across the 18th and 19th centuries. Mary Hamilton, 1746, prosecuted at Taunton for marrying a woman. By the 1860s, the Old Bailey is hearing similar cases. Defendants in frock coats, working as porters, soldiers, sometimes as sex workers, living lives the prosecution can only describe by misgendering. Mannion uses the language we now use. The court did not. If you are watching this from a transmasc lineage and you have ever wondered whether you have history, Mannion documented over 80 of your ancestors in one archive alone. You have been here. The court could not see you. The archive could. And one more thing, because the brothel chapter is not finished until we name it. The debt the madam holds over you, the rent on the upstairs room she charges back against your earnings, the dress she advances you, the laudanum, the doctor has a name. It is not the life, it is debt bondage. The International Labor Organization gave it a definition in 1930, Convention 29. The mechanism is the same in 1862 Whitechapel, and in 2024, we will not pretend otherwise. Contrast, before this chapter, you thought the only history printed for you was fallen woman. After this chapter, you have a category, an archive, and a treaty word for what was done to you. The language exists. It always did. The textbook just refused it. Let us count who pays you. The member of parliament, the clergyman with a parish in Belgravia, the army officer on leave from Aldershot, the barrister whose wife is at the country house, the medical man who, 6 months from now, will sit on the commission writing the law that registers you, the shopkeeper, the footman, the journalist who, tomorrow morning, will write 3-column inches about the moral decay of the city. None of these names will appear in any newspaper. Yours will. If the law passes, and the law is being drafted right now, yours will appear in a registry, kept by a police surgeon, available to any officer who asks. His will not appear anywhere. This is the name asymmetry. Per Judith Walkowitz, Prostitution and Victorian Society, Cambridge, 1980, then City of Dreadful Delight, Chicago, 1992. The entire architecture of 19th century regulation rests on it. The registered woman, the unregistered, unnamed, unsurveilled client. In July 1885, the journalist W.T. Stead buys a 13-year-old girl named Eliza Armstrong from her mother for £5. He does it to prove it can be done. He prints the proof, across 4 days, in the Pall Mall Gazette, under the title, The Maiden Tribute of Modern Babylon. The public buys every copy. Parliament panics. 6 weeks later, the Criminal Law Amendment Act passes. The age of consent rises to 16. Stead goes to prison for the purchase. Eliza disappears from her own story. The act also criminalizes gross indecency between males, the clause that will, 10 years later, send Oscar Wilde to Reading Gale. 1 newspaper series, 2 laws, several lives. How many women like you are working in London right now? Acton. Prostitution, considered in its moral, social, and sanitary aspects, Churchill, 1857, will give you a number, 80,000. He pulls it from a police estimate he himself flags as unreliable. Other contemporary counts run as low as 8,000. Hedge it. The point is not the number. The point is that the men writing the numbers never count their own visits. Contrast. Before this chapter, you thought you were one woman, alone, on a street, against a fog. After this chapter, you understand the fog was a policy choice. Someone drafted it. Someone named you in it and refused to name himself. You think the names of your clients never appear in newspapers. But what neither you nor those newspapers know. Parliament is already writing your skin into law. They tested the pen 6,000 miles away first. Lucknow, 1864. 4 years before Portsmouth, this is where the law you have been waiting for was written first. Not for you. On a woman you will never be told the name of. In 1864, the British colonial administration in India passes the Cantonment Acts. Per Ashwini Tambe and Harold Fisher Tanay, The Limits of British Colonial Control in South Asia, Routledge, 2008. The acts require every woman working near a garrison town to register her body with the cantonment medical officer, submit to compulsory genital examination, and, if found infected, be locked inside a building called a lock hospital for 3 months. Then 6. Then 9. The word for what the medical officer does to her body is not examination. Per Philippa Levine, Prostitution, Race, and Politics. Policing Venereal Disease in the British Empire, Routledge, 2003. Page 94. The word is instrumental rape. Levine names it because the women, in petitions to the colonial governor, named it first. The archive recorded their names as witness number, then numbered them away. 4 years before any equivalent law touches a British woman, the Indian Contagious Diseases Act of 1868 Act 14 extends this architecture across Bombay, Lucknow, Karachi, and Madras Presidency. Hong Kong since 1857. The Straits Settlements added in 1870. 5 colonial sites. 1 mechanism, same paragraph numbering. This is what Levine, working across all 5 sites, calls the colonial laboratory. The medical control of the imperial body politic is rehearsed on colonized women's bodies. The empire writes the draft in Hindi, in Tamil, in Cantonese, and then translates it home. Biopower, in case the word is new, Foucault's 1976 means the management of populations through their bodies. Cantonment means the garrison district. Instrumental rape, the women's word kept by Levine, means exactly what it sounds like. Only now, only after the law had already been written on women in Lucknow, did Parliament pass the Contagious Diseases Act of 1864 inches the United Kingdom. Then 1866. Then 1869, Portsmouth, Aldershot, Plymouth, the same forced examination, the same lock hospital, the same 9-month confinement. The same word, instrumental rape. This is the reversal the textbook hides by reading the dates in the wrong direction. Josephine Butler led the Ladies' National Association from 1869. She campaigned to repeal the British Acts. The campaign succeeded in 1886. She is, rightly, in the textbook. Here is the part the textbook ends on a comma. Per Antoinette Burton, Burdens of History, British Feminists, Indian Women, and Imperial Culture, UNC Press. 1994. The LNA campaigned against the British Acts, but framed Indian women as sisters needing rescue. The Indian Acts were not repealed until 1888, and only after Indian women's own petitions and Indian 4. Reformers pressure well after Butler's UK win. The rescue narrative, Burton writes, reinscribed the imperial hierarchy it claimed to fight. Restore the names the textbook trimmed. Elizabeth Wolstenholme, working-class women petitioners in Plymouth and Devonport whose signatures fill the LSE archive boxes Butler's biography rarely quotes, and the unnamed Indian women in Lucknow whose petitions Levine and Tamby found, transcribed, and finally printed. In Hansard, 31 July 1883, a Liberal MP rises to ask the Secretary of State for India whether the Indian Contagious Diseases Act is to be repealed alongside its British counterpart. The answer is recorded. 5 lines. The vote is deferred. Per Levine, Routledge, 2003, the deferral lasts another 5 years. This is not an accident of the archive. This is the archive working as designed. Her name does not survive. The law she helped write does. And 4 years later, Parliament dared to write it for you. You are 34. The law Parliament dared to write for you, 4 years after Lucknow, has now arrived in your body. The medical officer registers your name in a ledger you are not permitted to read. He examines you under threat of imprisonment, the word for that. Philippa Levine kept it for us in Routledge, 2003. Instrumental rape. If he finds infection, you are taken to a lock hospital. 3 months. Then 6. Then 9. Per Anne Hardy, The Epidemic Streets, Oxford, 1993, the same architecture, the same 9 months, written first in Lucknow, now arriving in Lambeth. The treatment is Mercury. Per the historiography held at the Museum of Healthcare Canada and cross-referenced by Hardy, 1993, Mercury cures the symptom by killing the patient slower than the disease. Late-stage syphilis arrives as tabes dorsalis, the nerves of the spinal cord degenerate, the legs stop responding to the brain, the mind goes by inches. The Victorian medical literature names it. It does not name what put you in the lock hospital in the first place. Mary Higgs, walking the same neighborhoods undercover in 1906. Project Gutenberg, ebook 40122. Free finds women your age in the workhouse infirmary, not patients, inmates. The Poor Law of 1834 makes the distinction in writing. The workhouse infirmary is not a hospital. It is a stop. The pauper's grave does not have your name. This is not a story of fate. It is a story of policy. Per Edwin Chadwick's Sanitary Report, 1842, primary the pauper grave is a fiscal category, not a tragedy. The bills of mortality record a number, not a name. You enter the parish ledger as a digit. The ledger is itself a piece of architecture written by men who never paid to bury anyone they had used. You will not appear in any newspaper, not as victim, not as worker, not as woman. You will not appear in any newspaper. The city that bought your body for decades does not send flowers. But the notebook was always going to outlast the newspaper. Brooklyn. To the descendant in Brooklyn whose great-great-grandmother walked off the famine ship from Cork in 1851, you found her here. She had a name. We used it. Dhaka. To the descendant in Dhaka of the Lucknow Ayah whom Parliament regulated in 1864, 4 years before it dared touch Portsmouth. Per Antoinette Burton, UNC Press, 1994. Josephine Butler did not write her name. We did. Berlin. To the descendant in Berlin whose great-great-grandparent wore the frock coat in Whitechapel, walked into the Old Bailey as a female husband, and walked out misgendered per Jen Mannion, Cambridge, 2020. You have over 80 ancestors in one archive alone. You have been here. Tel Aviv. To the descendant in Tel Aviv whose great-grandmother stepped off the 1881 pogrom boat into Spitalfields, the room was waiting because the room had been waiting for 40 years. The English collective of prostitutes started in 1975. The bad date list of 1,862 never stopped. It just changed who wrote it down.